joke out of it, or
Well, I know you're a Hunter S. Thompson fan, so you're probably aware of what Hunter did to Ed Muskie.
Oh yeah, the Ibogaine thing. Yeah, absolutely.
He went crazy.
Yeah,
I mean, literally went crazy.
Yeah.
Hunter, it was what was it on the Dick Cavett show that he talked about it? Well, there was a rumor that he had taken Ibogaine, and I knew about that rumor because I started it. And he drove that guy crazy to the point where you see, I think it was in New Hampshire. He was giving a political campaign speech, and he broke down.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He cried. Yeah. Well, so Hunter did this great thing. He wrote about it. It was kind of a spoof of campaign coverage, because he did this whole campaign diary, and then he just kind of went into this deadpan recitation of what sounded like a breaking news story about him discovering Muskie's secret relationship with a witch doctor who was providing him with Ibogaine. And then he dug up some file photo of Muskie that looked like this. It was like, right? And they put, Ed Muskie in the grips of an Ibogaine frenzy, right, was the caption. And it was completely deadpan. He never said he was kidding. Never said it was, not like that it was fiction. And Muskie couldn't handle it. I mean, that was probably the first real political trolling that went on. But
and a brilliant one too, because Ibogaine is not even that kind of a drug. It's a drug that helps people get off drugs.
Right, yeah, which is oddly enough illegal, right?
In America.
In America.
Yeah, it's legal in a lot of places, but it's really great for people getting off opiates.
Huh.
It's just a ferociously introspective drug that rewires the way your brain deals with addictions. It literally rewires the connections, alleviates addictions on a physical and psychological level.
What's the, what does it feel like?
I don't know. I haven't done that one.
Yeah,
but I know quite a few people that have had pill problems and have gone to Mexico and taken. My friend Ed Clay, who has an actual center down there now, he started it after he had gone down there for treatment. He had a back injury, I believe it was, and got hooked on pills. And I was like, Jesus, I got to figure out a way to get off these fucking things. And did Ibogaine, and then cleared it right up.
Wow.
And he realized, like, wow, like this is crazy that this is illegal.
Yeah.
So the one drug that Hunter chose was actually a drug that gets people off drugs. It's just even more ironic.
It just had a great name.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Brazilian doctor brought in Ibogaine treatment. I mean, it's fucking awesome. So that really was the original political troll.
Yeah. Yeah.
And might have had a giant effect in the election. Probably did.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I don't think it was an accident that Hunter's coverage was, that he chose that year to do these diaries. And I remember my father telling me about how every reporter would wait for Rolling Stone to come out that week so they could, read the coverage of the election. But, Hunter kind of took this unknown unknown senator from the Dakotas, George McGovern, and made him into this because this like Christ figure basically. And I don't think that McGovern would have won the nomination without that sort of relentless hyping that he gave him. Because
he probably would have won the presidency if it wasn't for the vice president having that issue with he had gone through electroshock therapy.
Eagleton, right?
Yeah.
That was terrible, but fascinating. I mean, I got to write the introduction to the last version of that book, and that's one of my favorite books of all time.
It's a great fucking book.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like it's such a crazy comic epic,
Yeah.
But
he was a big influence of yours.
Yeah, I definitely. I mean, I think the great thing about Hunter Thompson, first of all, he was so incredibly funny in a way that was completely rare. I mean, you can't just train to be that way. You either are born with that ability verbally or not. And he just had this completely strange, four-dimensional way of looking at things. And he would watch a completely boring campaign speech, and when he got done writing it up, it was like, you know, a psychedelic wrestling match or something like that. I mean, it was so much more interesting and bizarre and weird, and he saw all these great details, and he was just I think it was a great approach to journalism, but you know, sadly there aren't that many people who can pull it off because it just required you know, surpassing literary talent, and that's incredibly rare.
Well, it was a unique combination of fiction writing along with like an actual understanding,
analysis. That was his great, because you're right. He would bring you in, and the reader would kind of surf along this incredibly charged, fast-paced narrative that read like, you know, the fastest, most engrossing fiction, right? But he would intersperse it and stop and pull back and do what we call at Rolling Stone, we call them wisdoms, right? Where, you know, you just sort of stop and say, you know, here's my take on this. And those were amazing. I mean, he just had this ability to sort of cut through the bullshit and see things from an angle that nobody else saw, and that was a rare technique back then. The idea of the kind of individualized take on things. Nobody was doing that in reporting back then. I mean, no. It was nobody even thought of it as a form that you could really experiment with. I mean, there were a few people back then, like Terry Southern and Tom Wolfe, who were doing some things like that. But Thompson was completely unique, and there hasn't been anybody like him, you know, since then. I think it's not an accident that nobody's been able to pull that off again.